I have on my dry erase board at work a question that I found and I wrote down that's called, how successfully have I found my place in the world? And it still guides me today, and I think about it all the time. So I asked myself, looking back on my career, what three kinds of things helped me make the choices that I did? And I really think that the first one was do what you love, that you're good at, and make sure you ask for what you want. And secondly, surround yourself with good advisors. And don't listen to the naysayers. Just surround yourself with people who have your best interests at heart and are good advisors. And then thirdly, be flexible. Look for opportunities. Don't be rigid on what path you must take to get where you want to go, because there's all kinds of paths to get you where you want to go. There's not just one. So it helps to be flexible. So a little background. I do coordinate all the launch vehicle fleet issues between the Air Force, the NRO, and NASA. I've worked rockets my whole career. I'm a retired military officer, over 35 years in the space and missile business, and I love rockets. I love it, and it's been my life's passion. And the best thing about the rocket business is it's a small world, so I get to work with friends and colleagues that I've had over my entire life. And to say I love my job is an understatement. And I really try very hard to never take it for granted. So I was born only child to a military family late in their lives. My father was a very strong leader, and my mother was most of the time the peacemaker between my father and his strong-willed only child daughter. And I feel like I've kind of come to embody both of them, and that makes me really happy. And as an only child, my mom and dad never told me there was anything I couldn't do. I mean, it just never occurred to them. And so it never occurred to me. And so I was always very, I think, brave in the things that I wanted, and also as an only child, they were things that I wanted. And so I think that I really was able to be a little more forward-leaning in some of the things I wanted to do. So I wasn't one of those people that knew what they wanted to do since they were little. I didn't really even decide my path until almost my senior year of high school. I was really good in math and science. I loved it, and chemistry and all that stuff. It was really, really great. But as I got towards my senior year, I had to decide, what do I want to do? And as a Florida girl, I loved three things. I loved oceanography, because I lived right on the beach, pretty much. I loved ballet and dance, because I was a part-time dancer at Disney World while I was in high school. And I loved the space program. As an only child, I was an avid reader, and I loved science fiction, one show in particular. And I really, this was my bucket list in this building last year at AwesomeCon. Thank you, Mike Gold. So I cried. So I did. So anyway, I had to decide. Well, while I love dance, it's pretty fickle business, and I was good at it because to me it's just math, it's just patterns, but dance was out. It's too fickle. So then, round about that time, a movie came out, and I thought maybe oceanography was not going to be my particular jam. And then, really, the overpinning thing that came out for me was Apollo-Soyuz. So as a young girl, I'm watching the Soviet Union and the United States shaking hands across an airlock. And it really spoke to all the science fiction things that I had grown up dreaming about, and us being spacefaring and how it can unify the planet. And I really decided that this is what I wanted to do with my life. So I decided that I would play to my strengths, and I would study mechanical engineering in college, and maybe someday, if I worked really, really hard, I could be part of the space program. Not this space program, because that's not real life, right? The real space program. So there I am, freshman orientation. I'm in the College of Engineering pod, right? I'm the only girl, because back then, it's the only girl a lot. So I was the only girl in the College of Engineering, and the Air Force ROTC guys made a beeline to me, and they said, what were your grades? What are your SAT scores? And they were pretty good. So they're like, 4-year scholarship, full ride. All you have to do is pay the Air Force back 4 years of your life. I was like, wow, that sounds like a pretty good deal. Never heard of ROTC. What's that? My dad had never told me about it. Why would he? So I went and asked him. He said, go for it. And so I joined Air Force ROTC. And it turned out that not only did I love mechanical engineering, I loved Air Force ROTC. I had already grown up with a great leader, and I learned tremendous leadership things. And side bonus, met my future husband there. So it was a great decision on my part. But the best part of all is that my dad got to commission me. And that was amazing. So now it's like my senior year. I got to figure out what I want to do. You got to pick what you want to do with your life. So while my colleagues said I was crazy, I just put as my first line of what they called back then a dream sheet, I want more than anything else to work with the space program. That's what I put. And then I picked some bases and figured we'd see what would happen. Well, I got, on my very first assignment, assigned to a place none of us had ever heard of before. It was called Space Division in Los Angeles. I don't know if any of you know Steve Jakes, but that's him in the bunny suit. We were lieutenants. And so Space Division in LA, it's now SMC, and it was my very first job. I got to work upper stages for Atlas Motors. I got to be on a NASA Goddard failure investigation. I got to watch the first shuttle land, because we were going to build one. And it was the most amazing assignment. And about 2 years into it, the Air Force started bugging me about getting a master's degree in mechanical engineering. And they wanted to send me to AFIT, it's in Ohio. So my now brand new husband was going to go to Williams Air Force Base in Phoenix. So I said, well, I'm just going to ask if they can just send me to Arizona State instead. And my guy colleagues were like, you can't just do that. You can't ask to go. We've been trying to get into AFIT forever, and they're letting you go because you're a girl, which was, I'm sure, true. And they're like, you can't just ask. And I'm like, well, I'm going to ask. And they said, okay. And then my guy friends were really mad because it wasn't fair. And it probably wasn't. But I had a guy say to me, an old contractor, pull me aside, good advisor, and said, you know, you didn't create the problem of there not being a lot of women engineers, so don't feel bad about being part of the solution, but also don't screw it up, because you'll screw it up for every woman who wants this job after you. No pressure, right? But I was like, okay. So I went to Arizona State, and my guy friends were very kind to me. They saw me struggling. They helped me. Let me tell you, if you can do bachelor's, master's, don't take a break, because those study skills atrophy fast. That's one bit of side advice. But I made it through, and I graduated from Arizona State. And every time after that, I just started asking for what I wanted, you know, and didn't listen to people tell me that I couldn't do it or I'll never get it. And you really gotta listen to your advisors, because it's hard and it's scary to make those decisions and those choices. I relied on my friends, and I relied mostly, shameless plug for my husband, and he was the one that always pushes me outside the box, and you got to try this, and you can do it, even when I don't think that I can. And it's really important to have those good advisors, whoever they are in your life. And so I've had the advantage of doing arms control and working with 30 other nations and US delegations to talk about missile nonproliferation. I've been able to post-flight the Discovery shuttle when I was at NASA Ames as the first woman ever in their exchange scientist program. And I got to work on the EELV program, on the development of it, as the head of the program in Washington. So I have had an amazing career, and it's a lot because I listened to my advisors and because I stayed flexible. Now, what I will tell you is my priorities I didn't just set them and they never changed. They changed as I did, as my life did. When I was young, my priority was space program. Don't care where, don't care how, I want to be part of it. When I married my husband, his career took priority, not because he was the guy, but because he was the pilot, and this was the Air Force, and so we followed him. Once we had kids, then my priorities changed permanently, and while my children are at home, I would not separate from my family. I wouldn't break up my family. Those were my personal priorities. But, you know, I would have quit the Air Force rather than be separated from my family. And so that was my decisions. But they really did pay off. And I'm telling you, I did a lot more unusual jobs because I didn't follow the path to promotion because I did it this way. And I looked for those opportunities. And my kids are okay. Those of you that know them, they're a little goofy, but they're great. And I love them. And Kathleen is working for Lockheed Martin Space Systems Company. She's in commercial satellite sales, working for Carl Marchetto, who was her big boss, who was here earlier, I believe. And my son's going to Oklahoma State and studying mechanical and aerospace engineering. So we did well, and the most important thing is we're happy. And so when my husband and I look back on our careers, we made a lot of compromised decisions, but we're at peace with those, right? Because we kept our priorities the way they needed to be, and we're happy with where we're at. So one thing I can tell you is at the end of my career, before I retired, I did the one thing I swore I would never do: be a government contractor. Be a government support contractor and advise the government. But my friends told me they needed it, they asked me to do it, they asked me to consider it, and I did. And now I get to work, again, with all my friends and colleagues, coordinating the launch fleet issues across the board and working with commercial launch companies. And it's been a great melding of everything that I have done up to now. And it's been so wonderful. So the one thing I can tell you is when I look back on this, honestly, do what you love. Don't compromise. Make sure you're good at it, but do what you love and ask for what you want and set your priorities and let them evolve as you do and listen to your advisors and then stay very flexible because you just don't know what's going to present themselves to you. And if you're flexible and you can grab it, then who knows where it's going to take you. And I really hope that at the end you find your place in the world.